Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm going to be reacting to Swami Sarvapriyananda and Deepak Chopra. I don't think I pronounced that correctly, but I tried my best. Discussion on Vedanta. So, I've never seen this, obviously. Anything I react to, if I've seen it, I'll let you know. So this was a request. I do a request. If you have a request, please leave it in the comments below. Please leave the title, the YouTube channel, and the length. That way I can search for it. Because if you leave the link, it might get held for review from YouTube. Sometimes it doesn't, so you could put the link there and it might go through. But it's better for you to just type it up and I can search for it. Also, if I haven't commented saying, hey, I've added a video, give it about a week, and if I don't reply back to you, it might have been there's so many comments or I've been busy, and just say it again. But a week, give it a week though. Okay, anyways, let's go and get started.
Thank you for being here. We have approximately 40 minutes to solve the mystery of existence. So, without wasting any time.
40 minutes? That's 39 minutes too many to solve the mysteries of the universe.
I'm going to start talking to Swamiji. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll just give a very short introduction and then we'll get going, okay? So how many people here have heard the phrase, the hard problem of consciousness?
I've not heard of it.
How many people have not? Okay. Well, if you do a Google search and you ask what are the 150 open questions in science, the first open question in science is what's the universe made of? And the answer is we don't know, because 96% of the universe is
empty space,
mysterious dark energy, dark matter. I'm not going to go into that. 4% of the universe is atomic. Of the 4% of the universe that's atomic, 99.99% is invisible interstellar dust, so we can't see it. The visible universe, which we are now told, according to the scientific model, is 2 trillion galaxies. 2 trillion galaxies. So we live in the Milky Way galaxy with 100 billion stars. Next door is Andromeda, same number of stars, Virgo, on, keep going, 2 trillion.
Okay, so that number he gave, about 4% of the galaxy, I forgot what he said, but he said out of 100%, basically 4% is dark. I'm sorry, everything's dark matter. Then it's 4% that's not, but 99.99% of it is invisible, I believe. I've not heard that statistic before. I definitely got to look that up. That's pretty interesting. Holy crap! If that's to say that there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, obviously there is, but to put it in a good percentage wise, that is kind of crazy. But then again, I guess that kind of goes to the fact of how large our universe is, and we don't even know how large it genuinely is, because I don't think anything has ever reached out to the extent of the universe.
Galaxies.
2 trillion.
700 sextillion planets. I don't even know how to write that. And according to current scientific models, trillions, uncountable trillions of planets, possibly 60 billion habitable planets in our own galaxy, based on what they call the Goldilocks zone.
I've heard the Goldilocks zone.
That's only 0.01% of the universe. That's 0.01. The rest is unknown or unknowable. And the 0.01% that's atomic, if you go deep into the nature of atoms, they become particles, and then particles have this mysterious behavior that when they're not being looked at or they don't interact with other particles, they become waves. And unlike particles, which are units of mass and have units of mass and energy, waves just exist as possibilities. Bottom line, the universe is made out of nothing.
That's like, ouch. It's like, yeah, essentially everything that you say is nothing, just nothing. I'm looking at nothing. That's kind of crazy there. I definitely got to look at it. I've not heard any of that statistics, even during my time of just watching random stuff. I know that I think we're in a collision course with another universe as well. And I remember hearing that somewhere, and it's like, that's kind of crazy. Could you imagine being alive during the time when Earth or our galaxy is colliding with another, and our Earth is going to be colliding with another planet of that galaxy? That's kind of crazy. Could you imagine 5 hours until Earth is about to collide and explode? Wow, what a time to be to be alive. Actually, not a good time.
So why does it look like this? That's the hard problem of consciousness. Why does it look like this? How do atoms and molecules in the brain or electrical impulses create this experience? This experience, the experience of your own body, the experience of your own mind. And actually most people now think this hard problem is unsolvable if you think of matter as foundational. If matter is the ontological primitive, then the problem is unsolvable. So that's why we have Swamiji. He's going to solve the problem for us very quickly by telling us there's no hard problem at all. If you take the reverse point of view, and that is consciousness is fundamental and matter is a human construct. But without now me going on and on, Swamiji, Vedanta has solved this problem. What is Vedanta?
I definitely need to look up who Deepak. I think I seen another of his videos when he was talking with Sadhguru, and if I'm correct, I can't remember. He looks so young for his age. It's remarkable. But I definitely need to look him up and see what his specialty is. It seems to deal with maybe space and stuff. Or maybe he just knows this.
Well, thank you for the introduction, Deepak. Vedanta is a philosophical system or a family of philosophical systems based on very ancient texts called the Upanishads. And these Upanishads are the highest teachings of the Vedas. The Vedas, as we know, are very ancient scriptures of the Hindu religion. So these Upanishads, they contain...
I'm sorry. I wish you wouldn't say religion. I wish you would say Hindu way of life. I don't know. Maybe because of the Western world, that religion has kind of like a kind of taint in my eyes. And also, it would make it seem like, I guess maybe to the Western world, like it's like any other religion, and genuinely it's not. It's very much more open and very much, in my opinion, a way of life. Now, is there Hindu religion? Yes, I'm sure there are, but it's more than just a religion. I wish there's a word for it. It's like, oh, Hindu way of life is actually genuinely really nice. It seems more opening and welcoming, because I guess, again, with the Western influence on me, that religion tends to be a bit more strict, does have kind of a bad connotation in some sense, but obviously these are ways of the old religion, and a lot of the religions nowadays are generally not enforcing like they used to be.
Certain insights about who we are, and what reality is. The rishis, the ancient sages who came upon these insights, they found that by knowledge of these insights, by getting these insights, it actually it solves the very human problem of suffering, the problem of death, of meaninglessness. The crucial human problems, they are actually solved if you have knowledge about what we are and what this reality we live in is what we are experiencing. If you want me to put it in one sentence, and happily we can do that, the sentence is, that thou art. You are. Tattvamasi. It means there is an absolute reality of this universe which can be known or realized, and luckily for us, we are that absolute reality. Tattvamasi means that you are that absolute reality of which entirety of this universe and the person you experience yourself to be, these are manifestations of that one absolute reality, which is called Brahman in the Upanishads. Tattvamasi means that thou art, and this identity is the essential teaching of Vedanta. And they claim that it actually can be experienced in life. It's not speculation. It can be experienced, and it must be experienced in order to overcome suffering. So this is basically the core teaching of Vedanta.
And that absolute reality is usually expressed in English as pure consciousness. Would you
Yes,
say that?
Pure consciousness or pure existence. The Sanskrit terms are Sat, which means pure being or isness, existence. Chit, which means awareness, consciousness in itself. But also, happily, and pun intended, Ananda, which means happiness. So, joy or bliss. So, as Swami Vivekananda put it, existence itself.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to rewind that just a little bit because. Wait, did Google misspell something there?
Intended, Ananda, which means happiness.
Ananda, which means happiness. So, sarva pri. Sarva pri. Ananda. So basically, sarva pri. Happiness. Is that correct? Huh. I'm gonna be looking at their names differently. At least with Ananda at the very end, it's gonna be mean joy for me. Huh.
So joy or bliss. So as Swami Vivekananda put it, existence itself, consciousness itself, and bliss itself. That is the nature of the ultimate reality which Vedanta speaks about.
So let's now use one term for convenience, Satchitanand, just for lack of, for economy of expenditure of energy. Let's just use the word consciousness.
Absolutely.
And so consciousness is the basis of every experience we have, whether it's mind or body or the universe, right?
Right.
So give your definition of consciousness and how you would explain.
You've got only the easiest question, sir. Give a definition of consciousness. In fact, it is interesting that we live in interesting times. So I was just talking to Deepak a little while ago.
Sorry, I don't mean to be screaming. The volume of this is a little bit low, so I'm probably coming out really strong. I need to quiet down a bit.
Consciousness studies has become very important in the last 20-25 years. Scientists were not so interested in consciousness until about 25 or 30 years ago. But right now, consciousness studies is booming. There are psychologists are obviously interested in it. Neuroscientists are interested in it. Linguists and philosophers and people. Cosmologists are interested in it. Computer scientists are interested in it. So you think that all of these people are interested, so they know what they're talking about. Well, they cannot agree on what they're talking about. What is the definition of consciousness? There is no consensus. There are multiple definitions of consciousness, but none of them are acceptable across the board. In fact, a friend of mine who's a mathematician and a monk, he told me that I don't take this entire field of consciousness studies too seriously. I said, why ever not? Because it seems to be what we are doing as monks. He said, any field of study where you cannot define the subject of study is not yet a mature field of study.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if you're trying to study something, but everyone's arguing over a definition of it, it's like, how can you take it seriously? You kind of have to come to a consensus. Okay, this is the definition of what it is. Now let's go ahead and explore that definition.
All right. Now, what Deepak is asking me is, give me a definition of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you a definition of consciousness from the Vedanta perspective, where actually they are very clear on what they mean by consciousness. Get this. Whatever you are aware of
it's not true.
Is not consciousness. It's what is called a via negativa definition, a definition by exclusion. That means anything that you're aware of. Right now you are aware of sights and sounds and smells, all of this. So they are objects of consciousness. You are aware of them. And that which is aware of them is consciousness.
So then consciousness is basically awareness of experience, right?
Is the awareness in which experience becomes possible. Yeah.
So here, you know, I attend these conferences that you're talking about, and people come up with all kinds of definitions. So some materialists say consciousness is first-person experience. Others say consciousness is the knowing element in every experience. But I think the non-dualists these days, you know, a lot of non-dualists in the West too, they're saying that consciousness is the knowing element in every experience. So right now you know that you're having this experience. You also know that you have a body. You also know that you have a mind. So what is it that knows this experience called mind, body, world? Other non-dualists have expanded on that and said consciousness is that in which all experience occurs, all experience is known, and out of which all experience is made. Right. So you started off by saying consciousness is not anything that is an object.
Yes.
So this, what is this? This is an experience in consciousness, right?
Right. Look at the words which Deepak just used right now. The knowing element, that by which knowledge is possible. Now, what Vedanta would say is that if you carefully look at knowledge, all your experience, and eliminate mentally, in your understanding, eliminate from your experience whatever is objective, by which I mean, you're looking at this beaker, this jar here. This is objective, because it's an object of you're looking at it, it's an object. But what is looking at it? Your eyes. But you're aware of your eyes. Your eyes are open, closed. The guy is boring me so much, I can't keep my eyes open. You're aware of that. So the eyes are also objects in your awareness. Now, you are aware of your eyes with your mind. You're thinking about your eyes. So the thoughts in the mind, you're also aware of that. So even the thoughts in the mind are objects of awareness. In this way, if you eliminate, again in understanding, everything that is objective, everything that is an object in your experience, you are left with consciousness as it is. And don't try to catch it. Now I will get consciousness as it is. You will never get it that way, because that would be an object. So it is the you, the real you. In fact, one definition of consciousness offered by one of the disciples of the great Shankaracharya, in Sanskrit, anidam chaitanyam. Very elegant definition. What is it? Not this awareness. From your awareness, from your experience just now, if you eliminate in your understanding everything that you can call this jar, this body, this eye, this mind, this thought, if you eliminate that which shines upon all of them, that is consciousness.
That I can agree. Absolutely. I mean, those of you who've been watching a long time understand that I have a dualistic perspective, but I still try to understand as much of everything as I possibly can, just because I'm open-minded. I try to be open-minded. Let me put it that way. And I still want to listen to all this non-dualistic, because one of these days maybe they say something like, "Oh wow, okay, I get it. I believe now." Well, I don't want to say I believe. I have to experience it. And right now, dualist, and I'll say this, dualist perspective is the default, I think. Just because it is the easiest to say, I understand that this is me, not the body, but you know, the somewhere around in here is me, and that is you, and we're completely separate beings. So that's the reason why I say I'm the default dualist so far. And again, I have no way of proving this yet. Well, I don't think I'll ever prove it myself, but I don't have any knowledge or experience that myself is in my mind, but maybe in a certain section of the mind which deals with the thoughts. The thoughts come, it's like a how do I do this? Okay, so it's like a cup right here, right? And then so this is the cup. This is I'm sorry, let me try this again. This is who you are in here. There's nothing in there, but this is who you are, and this is the thought, and it just comes in. And then when he goes in, say, I think, I know, I want to. Thought goes in you and comes out. Thought goes in and comes out. But you cannot experience this until a thought goes in and comes out. goes in and comes out. That's my thinking on that so far. Again, I could very well be wrong, and I'm absolutely open to that. But there's nothing out of watching all of this video so far. I agree with a lot of what is said, except for, in a sense, who you are. It's again because of the sheer fact that Brahman Atman itself is something that you cannot experience, but yet he's saying here you can experience it. So then that's the thing. If I can experience that and acknowledge that it's something separate from myself, then I can start to, I don't want to say believe, because that sounds like, oh, there's no facts behind it, but in the sense believe with facts behind it.
And what shines is the knowing element. So as Swamiji said, you can't go looking for consciousness because it is that which is doing the looking, right? You can't find it out there because it's that which is looking at what's out there. But let's go a little deeper
Further.
now that you have
Right.
you have created the basis now that
Yes.
consciousness is not an object. The object is experience in consciousness. Now this is also an object, right? This
Right.
body is also an
Right.
object. And the thoughts are also an object.
Right.
So can we say, let's say you're a baby, you just showed up in the world, which by the way has already been interpreted for every baby for 2,000 plus years, ever since people started to speak in language and created culture and started telling stories. People started interpreting experience, and we are born into an interpreted world before we are born. You see, you're a baby. What you see here is not a shoe, you see a color, a shape.
Right.
If you touch it, it's a sensation. If you can smell it, taste it if you want, but, or make noise out of it.
Yeah.
So these are sensory experiences, right? Without labels.
Right.
But then humans create labels and create constructs. We call that a shoe, we call this a hand, we call this a body, we call this the world.
Right.
And then we give names, and you were earlier on explaining to me.
And I hope he says the reason why we do this is so that we can easily identify the world. It's much easier to communicate with someone when we say, hey, hand me the pen. And you hand a hairbrush. No, that's not the pen. This is the pen. So that's the reason why we define stuff, is so that we can identify, and it's easier to communicate, instead of like I said with the pen thing, where you hand the wrong thing. It's like, no, that's not the pen. That's the pen. Now you know that this is the pen now. So anytime someone says, give me the pen, you know to hand this and not that brush.
This is the whole phenomenon that we call Nam Rupa.
Right.
But this naming creates a human construct of what is really a sensory perception, which in turn is a mental activity, which in turn, as you just said,
Is in consciousness.
an activity in consciousness.
Right.
So if we take that literally,
Yeah.
then this is also made out of consciousness.
This is, I think, Deepak's favorite theme, that everything is made out of consciousness. But here's the thing here, because that's what one of the schools of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, these Upanishads I was speaking about. So great philosophers came along, and they took these Upanishads and they developed very complex but very coherent and consistent systems of philosophy based on these Upanishads. So they became the different schools of Vedanta. One school which is very well known is Advaita Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta. There, the idea is that not only are you consciousness, but then everything else is also consciousness. Now this might sound, as somebody told me recently, a materialist. It's a wacky idea. It's a crazy idea.
I think I get that. I've heard it a few times being spoken on this, that everything is consciousness. But it's... I guess I don't quite... I understand it, but I don't know if I have a complete understanding of it. And whenever Deepak was talking about how our sensory, how we touch something, our sense organ feels it, touch, and then it travels to our minds, to our thoughts, and then to the consciousness. Is it because it's in the sensory self traveled all the way up to our mind, into our consciousness, that it becomes consciousness because it's in the conscious mind, the consciousness, because of how our sense organ interpret things, that the electrical signals that goes from our sensory organs to our minds and to our consciousness then is manifested as consciousness. Is that what they're trying to say? Even though it's I don't know if it's difficult to explain or not. Even though this is a physical material thing in the world, but because the sensory is going into our mind, into our consciousness, that it is the consciousness that is experiencing it, therefore what is experienced is consciousness. I don't know if that makes any sense. Again, I've thought about this just now, and for me to formulate something so quickly, it sometimes can be difficult, especially this stuff. This is definitely something I need to think about a lot.
How can everything be consciousness? But it goes like this.
Okay.
Once you say that whatever is objective is not consciousness, that which is aware of the object is consciousness, then you are left with the entire world of objects, the entire universe out there, my own body, even the mind. They're all objects. Now I am the consciousness witnessing all of this. Now your question is, then what are these objects? And that's where Vedanta becomes very interesting. It says, all of the things that you experience in consciousness as objects are actually nothing other than consciousness itself. You, the pure consciousness, the entirely subjective consciousness, appears out there as a world set in space and time and full of objects with the help of name and form. So this names and forms, another name for this is Maya, name and form, Nama Rupa. So what you're seeing here is you, the consciousness, in yourself appears a mind, a body with its senses, and the senses reveal to it a universe of objects set out there apparently in time and space, including this glass jar. And all of this is name and form. Interpretation, as you said. Somebody put it very beautifully. Language is the knife with which you cut reality. So this patch of color, what it might look like to a baby, but the mother comes and explains, this is a jar of water.
And this is your body.
This is your body.
This is a hand, this is the world.
Yeah, and a concept of your body. Yeah, that also slowly a baby learns over time. That is my body.
So given this understanding...
Sorry. I had a I get it moment whenever he was explaining that, and I think I definitely gotta watch that part again. Let me notate that so I can do that in my own time. 17, just probably 16. So basically, because you know, we're gonna watch it again. I'm sorry. Go back to 16.
All of the things that you experience in consciousness as objects are actually nothing other than consciousness itself. You, the pure...
Okay, so basically because everything is consciousness, and because everything is consciousness, and the sheer fact that we identify something, we somehow see that as a separation from ourselves, because of that separation you think of two different objects. That's how you think of duality. The pen again. If the pen and I are consciousness, we're one and the same. But because I see it as something as separate as myself, the consciousness that I have is aware of the pen, I think of it as separate from myself. But in reality, because everything is consciousness, it is also consciousness. And this idea that my own mind sees this as something separate is Maya. And the fact that my own mind thinks it is separate from everything else is also Maya. And the fact that Oh, I get it. It's hard to explain that. I would have to definitely think about it deeper, but I think I get it. It's just a sheer fact because everything is consciousness. Like the dream. In your dream, everything is you in the dream. That honestly, that is like the perfect example in a dream. Is when you see a building in your dream, that's not literally something separate from you. That is literally you dreaming that up. Everything in that dream is you. That is the absolute, I think that is the absolute perfect example. Even though I understood it, it was like wasn't fitting in the puzzle, as I say. For my mind, the way it works, I see it as like puzzles. And sometimes, you know, when you're trying to fit the piece in, it doesn't quite fit in right. That's like me trying to understand something I don't quite get, but I understand it to some degree, but not fully because the piece hasn't, you know, fit in properly. And once it fits in, I'm like, I get it. Okay. I get it. I get it. Okay, sorry.
Consciousness, the entirely subjective consciousness, appears out there as a world set in space and time and full of objects with the help of name and form.
Yes, okay.
So this names and forms, another name for this is Maya, name and form, Nama Rupa. So what you're seeing here is you, the consciousness, in yourself appears a mind, a body with its senses, and the senses reveal to it a universe of objects set out there apparently in time and space, including this glass jar. And all of this is name and form. Interpretation, as you said. Somebody put it very beautifully. Language is the knife with which you cut reality. So this patch of color, what it might look like to a baby, but the mother comes and explains, this is a jar of water.
And this is your body.
This is your body.
This is a hand, this is the world.
Yeah, and a concept of your body. Yeah, that also slowly a baby learns over time. That is my body.
So given this understanding and given the Vedic worldview, and given the fact that we as humans, we can only speak in language and explain things in language, and as soon as we create a word, we in a sense create a construct out of fundamental reality, which right now you said is consciousness, Tattvamasi, that's Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. Given this construct, for our audience who's not familiar with these terms, can you help explain the difference between Jiva, Atma, and Brahman? And then let's go further after that.
Oh,
This is an opportunity to get Vedanta in less than an hour. Okay, so we can't waste time. Let's get it all out here.
Oh, Vedanta 101 then.
Yeah.
Yes. That absolute reality which Vedanta speaks about is called Brahman. And the word Brahman, etymologically, if you look at it in Sanskrit, it simply means the vast. That which has no limit. Just the vast. It's not the name of a particular god or anything like that. It's just the limitless, the vast.
I've always thought it to be a god. Before watching this wisdom videos, I've always thought it as a god, as like God in Western religion.
Infinite.
The infinite. And by the way, when you talk about infinite, a mathematician or a scientist might want to ask you, what exactly do you mean by infinite? Because there are precisely defined infinites, more than one infinite in mathematics, for example.
What?
Vedanta has a very precise definition of the infinite. It says that which is not limited in space, time, and object is the infinite. In Sanskrit, desha kala vastu paricheda shunyam, devoid of limitations in time, space, and object. What are limitations in time? Born at this time, dying at this time, created and destroyed. So that's a limitation in time. If you do not have a limitation in time, what happens? You're eternal. There's no point where you are that is created, no point where it is destroyed.
So here's a very important thing to understand. Eternal doesn't mean stretching in time forever. Eternal means timeless, not in time at all.
You're right. It's not something which lasts a long time. That's one way of understanding eternal, but that's just a preliminary step. The real thing is your time is in you.
There's no beginning nor there is an end. It's always there, ever existing.
You might ask, that sounds confusing. What do you mean time is in you? Vedanta means it in a very simple sense. when you experience time, right? That Tim just told us we're going to wrap up by 8:30. So it's in Tim's consciousness all the time that we're going to wrap up at 8:30. 8:30 is not aware of Tim. Tim is aware of 8:30. That's all that Vedanta means when it says that time is in consciousness and not consciousness in time.
Another human construct.
And no limitation in object. That's an interesting thing in Indian philosophy. Limitation in object means this glass jar is just a glass jar. It's not the table. It's not Deepak or me. So each object has its own identity and it's different from everything else. That's called limitation by object. And being infinite means it is not limited to any particular object, which means no object in the universe is different from Brahman. If no object is different from Brahman, there's no difference between Brahman and any other object. There is no second thing apart from Brahman, so that no second means Advaita. Not
So that's in the last video. Oh God, what was it called? The last video that I did. Hopefully, you guys can remember about the buckets of water. That person made it seem like there's a separate Atman and that's another thing. That is another thing. Brahman and Atman, are they the same? According to one of the videos that I reacted, sorry, I can't remember the name. Those are one and the same, interchangeable. The Brahman is the forest, the Atman are the trees in the forest. That makes it seem like it's separate. But yet, I always hear that Brahman and Atman are the same. Brahman and Atman are kind of separate, but the same. So that's kind of confusing, a little bit. I've assumed them to be the same. Because, again, most of them always say they're the same, and some of them that say they're separate, but they're the same. So, the same. And that video about the buckets of water and Atman being the sunlight that's shining in all the buckets of water, there was a word he used, which is the water. I can't remember. It started with an S. And it's basically talking about reincarnation. That was it. And that water gets filled up into another bucket, a baby bucket. But that water is, in a sense, your memories, your experiences, I believe. And that's how, being simple, how reincarnation works. But that water is something that is separate from the sunlight. But then again, maybe he was just trying to explain it. But the way he was explaining it, at least from my understanding, was that Brahman Atman was not the water. And that's the reason why whenever you get reincarnated, you have memories of your own experiences and not experiences from other people. I definitely need to draw this out so you can better understand it. It definitely would help. Because if you die, your experiences in life doesn't go with the Atman itself. Otherwise, because that's like one big, just imagine if like a water and you pour red dye in there. It just goes all over the place. It gets super diluted into the Atman, and then some of that consciousness go to another person, and some of the consciousness can go back into you in a sense. Even though, according to the egg, everyone is Atman anyway, so I'm trying to explain this, but I keep going deeper and deeper, and I feel like I'm just wasting time. Let's go ahead and keep going.
non-duality. So Brahman is that non-dual reality which is not limited by time, space, or object.
That the objects in consciousness cannot limit consciousness. Consciousness is not limited by its contents. But now,
Atman.
Atman,
Yes. That's the second important concept in Vedanta. Atman means you. So when Vedanta says that thou art, what it basically means, Brahman is equal to Atman. It means that infinite reality, not limited by time, space, and object, is you. You might say, that sounds cool, but I can't really believe that. But it's you in a very special sense. Not you as a body, not you as the mind or as the limited person, but as that absolute consciousness which shines through that particular mind and body. So, which in fact shines through and reveals the person you take yourself to be. So that reality, beyond the person, that pure consciousness is called Atman. And Atman is equal to Brahman is basically the teaching of Vedanta. So if you say, what is Atman? The real me, or the real I, which is the reality of this universe also.
It's the self, not the selfie. This is a selfie, right?
Yes.
Deepak Chopra is a selfie. Your name and your form is your selfie at the moment through an act of perception. But when we say I, what is the I that is experiencing this name and this form, right?
I think the selfie idea, it struck me, in Vedanta we keep saying that you have to find out who am I or what am I. Because if you discover that, you have discovered the reality of the universe, self-knowledge. I think that's the real selfie. When you, instead of taking a picture of the body, if you could take a picture of yourself as you really are, that would be the ultimate selfie, I think. That would be a nice topic for a talk, I think. The ultimate
selfie. So now,
selfie.
what is the difference between Atman and Jiva?
Difference between Atman and Jivatman. I want to see if I've learned anything. So Atman is your true self, which is part of Brahman. Jivatman is yourself thinking that you're separate. Basically duality. Basically, Jivatman is the belief that you are yourself and no one else and nothing else. I think that's about the best I could explain it. So, Atman is your true self, which is everything and everyone. Jivatman is yourself in a duality's perspective, in terms of you are who you are, and everyone and everything else is separate from you.
The Sanskrit term jiva, it's as we experience ourselves right now.
Yes.
If I tell you that you are pure consciousness, you might say, Swami, that sounds nice, but that's not how I see myself. How do you see yourself? How do you experience yourself? We experience ourselves as persons, as embodied in bodies which are born and change and age and decay and die. We enjoy and suffer. So this being, which is definitely a conscious being, but which finds itself limited to a body and mind, this is called the jiva.
And even that body-mind is an activity, it's not a noun, it's a verb, it's a changing process, right?
True.
In pure consciousness.
True. The body is a series of changes. We all know it, from birth till now, and eventually from babyhood to childhood to being a teenager to a young person, middle age and an old person. It's like a stream of changes in this physical matter. That's the body. And the mind changes even faster. I mean, today, from the morning till now, how many times you've been happy and irritated and curious and bored. The mind changes continuously. It's a series of changes at a subtle level. You experience it within yourself. And this body-mind series of changes appearing in consciousness, having forgotten its consciousness nature, is what we call the individual, the jiva. That's the Vedantic understanding of the person.
And this jiva is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a novice. You're the expert.
Oh, you're not. He's been at it much longer than I have.
Yeah, but you have the training. Jiva is programmed by, if I may use that word, by sanskara, karma, vasana, at a very fundamental level. So can you explain these terms?
Yes, our story does not begin at birth and does not end with death. We are very ancient creatures. Even the most newborn baby is actually a very, very ancient creature. We have existed many lives before, and there are possibly many more lives ahead of us. That's the Vedanta worldview. This jiva existed before it came to this particular body. It existed in other bodies, in other worlds. And so over an infinite period of time, through actions, it has been accumulating through cause and effect, what is called the law of karma. The law of karma, to put it very briefly, every action has its reaction or its effect. Every cause has its consequence. And this is something very fundamental in Indian philosophy. With the enormous variety within Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all the Indic philosophies, but they all accept the law of karma, that there is causality. Now, because of this...
Sorry, I want to say that I do believe in that as well. It's not to say that I guess it goes in a sense true to what they're saying, because I believe in this one. Karma says that you'll whatever you sow you reap. Whatever you do may not happen to you in this life, but could happen to you in the next life. To me, that in a sense could be like something like hell in religion, because it's teaching a person to be good. It's like, you better be good or you're gonna get punished in later on in your life or in your next life. So it's like kind of like a punishment type deal. But at the same time, I believe in that, not in the sense of the next life, but in the sense of this life. And it's not always going to get paid, and that's what some people have a problem with. And so what I mean by that is, I think I said it in one of the other videos, but imagine you're going to high school with someone and you bullied that someone. You were a bully to them, you were mean to them. Then later on in life, you graduate and you go apply for a job, and then come to realize the person that you bullied is your job. I'm sorry, your job. Your boss is your boss. And now that person that you bullied may remember that and say, and then this is where karma hits. You're not getting hired. Or you were friendly to that person, you helped them up, you were very friendly to them, and then you graduate college or whatever, and then you apply for a job, and there's that person. Because of your good deeds in the past, and if that person remembers, well, he must say, hey, look, man, you helped me through high school or college, you got the job. I don't care about anyone else, you got the job. Again, that's very much the definition of karma. Although I don't believe karma to be some kind of external source, it's just more along the lines of what you do to people directly, kind of deal. Or it could be, could you imagine this? And this is that some people have a problem with, is the fact that imagine you bullying this person, and then you're still a bully as you grow up and you graduate and you create your own job, and then the person that you bullied applied for your company, and then you continue to bully them, and then you never get your repercussions that way. Now, mind you, if he becomes a complete a-hole for a long time, people are not going to favor him very much, are going to cut corners, and eventually, maybe, if he doesn't do things right, he will get his karma.
We are what we are today. It explains the differences between each jiva. As consciousness, we are one reality. But when you come to the mind and the body and the person, we are so different. We have different stories, different abilities, different problems, and different possibilities. All of these differences are the results of past karma. And what we do with it right now generates new karma for future existences. So this is karma. The karma has two effects. One is it gives us this life, and the other is it has an effect on our minds.
Okay, that brings up another... I'm sorry I keep pausing it so much. But it brings up another question. So karma is something that follows us. And it goes back to the last video about rebirth, about the buckets of water. The buckets of water is the accumulation of your experiences, I believe. And also, apparently, an accumulation of your karma as well. But if everything is Brahman, that's what I don't understand. If there's only one true consciousness, that one consciousness has all of the karma. It cannot distinguish one another because it is only one, right? Am I right? Like, all the karma that I accumulated, whether it be good or bad, because we all are this one consciousness, that karma that I accumulated applies to everyone. Because I am not separate from someone else. Am I right? Or am I wrong? Am I right? So basically, all the bad... Say I was a bad person. And I accumulate a lot of bad karma. But because I am Atman, I am Brahman, that applies to everyone. It cannot apply to just me, because me is the false me. Brahman Atman is the true me, which is everyone. Now, if I didn't understand that correctly, let me know. But as far as my understanding is that because we're all one consciousness, that karma applies to that one consciousness, because me is not me. I am a Maya. I'm an illusion of an individual. I am in fact Atman, which is everyone and everything.
So the effect on our minds, our individual likes and dislikes, whether you prefer this or that, whether you hate this thing or that thing, those individual preferences are called samskaras. And they exist in the mind, in
There
the
it
subtle
is. Yeah,
body.
that's it. Samskaras.
That's what the jiva takes away after death. Yeah.
So the karma, the sanskara, the vasanas, is that the personality with which, say, you have you have identical twins, they have the same fertilized ovum, but any mother will tell you that they're two different personalities. Is that coming from sanskara?
True, true. I mean, even children in the same household, you mentioned twins, but parents know how different they are. So these differences, though they come from the same parents, they're probably brought up in the same kind of environment, nature and nurture both seem to be similar, but then there's tremendous difference between children. So that comes, it's inherited from past lives. That's the Vedantic understanding of how we are so different.
Completing this map step by step, then even in Ayurveda we talk about physical body, sthul sharirs, sukshma sharir, subtle body, mind, intellect, ego, causal body. Explain this map just a little bit, the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body.
Yeah, this is actually what they talked about in the last video. Okay. And samskara, I don't know if he said, I'm sure he has, and somehow I didn't catch on to that. Samskara is the water.
Okay, that's
In
an
the
important
example.
concept. But one thing I want everybody to know is Vedanta, it's not speculation. It's not even metaphysics. It's firmly grounded in experience. Whose experience? Your experience and my experience. So when you talk about a physical body, subtle body, causal body, it's all experiential and right now. You can see it right now. What is the physical body? That which you can see. You can see it, you can touch it, taste it, smell it. This is the physical body, yes. That which you see, which you can weigh, that's the physical body. Now, within this physical body is what Vedanta calls a subtle body. How do you know? You just have to close your eyes and look inside. You see, I'm happy, that's a subtle body. I'm unhappy, subtle body. I remember, I forget, I want,
Your
I
emotions,
dislike,
then.
I understand, I do not understand.
Oh,
All
your
that
intellect
you
too.
directly experience within yourself. This first person experience which we are having right now, that's the subtle body.
Sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk to him. I should have paused. So basically, your emotions and your knowledge or intelligence is the subtle body.
And beyond that, Vedanta talks about something a little more obscure called the causal body,
I've never heard of this, by the way.
which is the blankness which we experience in deep sleep.
Never mind, I've heard of that.
If you right now try to experience yourself beyond the subtle body, what is it that it is which is experiencing the subtle body? You will tend to hit a blank wall if you see it right now. That is the causal body. And Vedanta says the real you, the Atman, is not the physical body. You are not this body. Is not the subtle body, not even the mind, not even the person, is not even the causal body, but that consciousness in which all of these are experienced. And the way I put it is, you can drive a car, that doesn't make you a car. You are embodied. We have a body. Vedanta doesn't deny that. You are experiencing a body and a mind. That's all there. But you are not that. You are not limited to that.
So
Okay, I'm going to actually pause right. Oh, perfect, 30 minutes. Because this is already going on an hour. Okay, so a lot of it makes sense now. I know he talked about the dream example whenever I reacted to his "Who am I?" I get it at that point, but I think it further clicked for me now of how the non-duality's worldview works. and I don't know if I completely get it, but I get it. I don't know how much I got it though, but I understand the fact that, you know, this is, in terms of the non-duality's point of view, that this is pure consciousness, including us. But yes, alright, so this is going to be part 1. It's going to be in 2 parts. Hopefully, I don't know how much content's left on this video, because it says 40 minutes and it's a 50-minute long one, so I'm hoping there are some questions and answers at the end. So anyway, that's my first reaction to Swami Sarvapriyananda and Deepak Chopra, sorry, discussion of Vedanta. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.